Welcome to the Observeday podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. Today on Observe Day podcast, we are celebrating Global Diversity Awareness Month, a time to reflect on how cultural understanding, inclusion, and equity shape our world. My guest, Matthias Lemos Castillo, is a true cultural bridge builder. Born in Uruguay and now based in the United States, Matthias is a community engagement consultant, bilingual leader, and founder of MLC Consulting, where he helps organizations foster inclusivity through authentic cultural connections. His work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and civic engagement has empowered countless teams to build workplaces and communities where everyone belongs. In this episode, we'll explore what it truly means to go beyond diversity check boxes and create spaces where differences become strengths. Welcome to the podcast, Matthias.
Thank you, Wisdom, for having me, and thanks to the listeners for tuning in. It's so good to be able to talk about some cool dates here that we're celebrating.
Global Diversity Awareness Month celebrates understanding across cultures. Before we proceed with the conversation, what does global diversity personally mean to you, Matthias?
I love that question. When I think about global diversity, I think about all of us, all the uniqueness that we bring, all the, the celebrations, all the moments that we shared, and how we shall celebrate them, right? It's not one way, but many, and all of us share some sort of diversity wherever we are in the world. So I think a lot about, the uniqueness that we all bring to our day-to-day lives, to each other's lives, and to our communities. And, regardless of the culture, the background, or the perspectives, we can all share them and we can all take part of them.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. You were born in Uruguay, and am I saying it correctly?
We say Uruguay in my country, but you're close.
It's a completely different way of pronouncing it. Wow. And you later moved to the US. How's your personal journey shaped your passion for building cross-cultural connections? So I guess the question in simple terms is, how did you get into this work that you're doing?
Good question, Wisdom. Very different cultures between Uruguay. You're saying it right, by the way. And the United States, how would I say, from the people, the food, the culture, there's a lot of differences and there's also a lot of similarities. Here in the United States, I think the beautiful part is that you get even more exposure to diversity, to different cultures, to people and customs, and it's celebrated. I know 2025 is kind of shaped big media wise, not the celebration of culture. And the work that I do every day is a celebration, and every day we're celebrating our diversity, our cultures, our uniqueness. And it can go from the simple things, in Uruguay, we drink mate every day.
Wow.
I'm drinking mate right now, so if you hear me slurping on something, it's because, I'm having my afternoon mate here.
Yeah,
I think it's morning for you, right? Over there. Yeah, it's 4 p.m. over here in California, but
for me, 12 a.m. Tuesday.
Oh man, okay, so early. And in the United States, you see a lot of differences. In Uruguay, I was seeing a lot of, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil cultures, and it was wonderful. Moving into the United States, I was able to see way more of all Latin America. I think I met a person from each Latin American country, but also from all around the world. And I think that's really what's the beautiful part about it, is that it's a melting pot of cultures and it's celebrated. And when you look at the big media, it's not, but I want to share with this message. When you look at communities and individuals at a micro level, we are, and we're still very much inclusive and very much aware that our global is very diverse and we live in a community that reflects that. So it's really great. It's great seeing, that change coming to the United States. I definitely had a culture shock. I'll say Wisdom is hard going from, be able to walk to grandma's house or, going to the bread store. But you find your rhythm here in the United States. It changed a lot, but it took a little while to get accustomed. And I think that's something that's shared through a number of folks. It's different. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's bad. It means you have a different pace of life.
Global diversity. When conversations about global diversity, it's happening for many organizations. Um, they don't really talk about diversity, and they don't really even know what that is all about. Like, right? And with your work that you do, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see leaders make when it comes to genuine inclusion, diversity, and how can they do better?
That's a great question, Wisdom,
Okay.
and I'll break it up a couple of ways. The first part, what is I see
Leaders.
like, am I? Yeah, what I see leaders is that they don't lead into the common denominator. I think diversity is a both and, right? There's the differences and there's the similarities. And a lot of times I see leaders lean into the differences, which is totally fine. And they miss the part where we have the common denominator. Like, the same way we celebrate, I'll bring this one up. Christmas, for example, is coming
Yeah.
up, or Halloween, given that it's October. Halloween celebrated in Uruguay too. It's celebrated in multiple countries around the world. And I've seen leaders just say this is an American only holiday. Wrong. It's a holiday that's observed in multiple countries, that's observed in multiple places around the world. It's the how it's done that looks different. And how do we lean into those places to see, building that cultural competence is really important because you can see both and, right, the things that are similar and the things that are different. So for leaders, I would encourage, check those biases, check, how are you coming into the room? Are you gaining perspectives from other folks? And how do you open the door to have an open conversation around, like, what's similar, what's different? That was a hard conversation to have sometimes, and it was a much needed one. In my work with community, we celebrate, like I mentioned, we celebrate diversity in a number of ways. And for me, it's the fact that I am being receptive to the audience that I'm working with. And that means the strategy changes. It doesn't mean, I'm coming in with the same tools or the same format to the community spaces. If anything, it's doing it in a way that's tailored, that's receptive. Maybe it's in the language that folks speak that's more comfortable, or maybe it's in a format that allows for folks to engage. And sometimes it's not me, right, doing the work, it's a trusted messenger. So how do we lean into that? And that's my second cue to leaders in this world. If you're not the trusted messenger or the right messenger, who do you know that can relay that message, do it more authentically for you? Or how can you get to know that leader that can help you reach that audience? Because a lot of times folks feel like, they can do it all, and maybe they can. That being said, awareness and that bias is critical, and being able to foster that inclusivity sometimes means, bringing that trusted messenger that knows how to do it in a way that is authentic and receptive to the audience
Yeah.
that you're working with.
For one of the questions I want to ask is how teams can strengthen their cultural competency, in practical everyday ways beyond just workshops and annual training. But before you respond to that question, I'd love for you to explain what cultural competency is for those that are hearing that phrase for the first time.
Yeah. When I think about cultural competence, I think in practice it means, building that awareness of one's own cultural view and gaining knowledge of different cultural practices and worldviews. So being able to bridge those two is cultural competence, right? It's what I know about what I'm used to, and what do I know about wisdoms, for example, world, and customs, cultures, traditions. So that's really what I think about cultural competence. And you don't need to make an assumption, right? You can ask. And I think a lot of people are afraid of doing that piece. Asking questions actually is the best way to learn and learn differences and, um, be able to lean into what is different and what is, again, the same. Now,
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observeday newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
your other question was what was the, oh, do you mind repeating it for me?
You've explained what cultural competence is. Now, the other question is, how can teams strengthen their cultural competency in practical, everyday ways beyond just the workshops, quarterly trainings, and all those things?
Yes, the workshop, the trainings are great. Always a fan of those. If you're trying to go beyond, dig deeper, I'll share 2 ways. And the first one, your library. Um, your library has resources, books, movies, magazines. Engage with those. Pick something new. I like to go to the library and check something that I wouldn't normally do, or something that would teach me about a different culture. Cookbooks, for example, is one of mine, because I can lean in and see, what is, more of a Southern style cuisine, and how is it engaged with that? And, if you look at that section, sometimes there's Black Southern cuisine, and you can get down very nitty to race and compare, which is really great. Cookbooks are a great way. Movies are awesome. The second way, and this is more the fun way, I think, TikTok. For those that are on TikTok, but if you're not on TikTok, social media, and explore something that's different. Explore something, you can type in global diversity and let that rabbit hole take you. I think you'll learn so much, and allows you to kind of experience, through the lens of someone that is experienced it, what their world is like, and how do you build upon your worldview. It's really around exposure. And the other third wisdom, I'll say, travel. Go explore. Invest in that cuisine and that culture. Maybe you go to a store. But those are great ways to explore, learn, and meet new people. I think nowadays that's very valuable, and we gotta lean into that. And a lot of times you can find it in your own community. I think a lot about here in California. There's different towns. There's Chinatown nearby where I live, and in San Francisco, wonderful cuisine, wonderful stores, and wonderful people to just meet. And you just go and you talk to folks, and if you don't happen to have that in your city, in your town, wherever you live, try to find, how can social media help you, or what's a near restaurant that you can go support. So yeah, those are the 3 ways I would mention. I know I said 2, but library, social media, and then your own local community.
Well, thank you so much for sharing 3 ways we can incorporate cultural competence into our everyday life. You've been working with so many businesses and organizations. Can you share an example where, or probably lessons where leadership, where what leadership has taught you about the importance of empathy, listening, and authenticity when navigating cultural differences? So essentially, when working with people from varying cultural backgrounds, the importance of some of those skills as a leader in leading them.
Yeah, with one example that comes to mind off the top of my head is that trusted messenger component that I mentioned earlier. And I do this with a lot of the work I do with cities, where I usually get on board and I can engage with the Latina community, folks that speak English and Spanish. And how do I dig deeper in when I'm working with folks, let's say in the Hmong community or Asian Pacific Islander community? So what I do, and this is something for leaders, when I find or identify people already in the community that are plugged in, that can do that work on my behalf and with me, and how do I collaborate with them? I think one of the strong factors of being a leader is be able to collaborate and know where your skills and where the skills of someone else start. it's really crucial because that way, especially doing community engagement, I know that if I need to reach a community or want to hear insights from a particular group of folks, I can work with a trusted messenger that can help me relate that message and reach that audience more authentically rather than saying, hey, y'all, I gotta do it myself. It's working with others. And I think part of that diversity is how do you work with others and create those relationships? So when the moment comes that you need, you know, to do the outreach, to inform, to engage, or even co-create, you can have that trust, that relationship built, and you can do it in a way that's more authentic and more reciprocal, right? Contrast would be extractive. So you're not taking away from the community, if rather working alongside them to build this with them. I think that's really something truly impactful and truly crucial for leaders. And it's a build muscle, right? It's going out and meeting people in different ways that you wouldn't traditionally do it, and supporting, those efforts, because in the long run, they might support you.
Would you be so kind to share a story from your career or your work where bridging a cultural gap changed the organization or you personally, whichever?
Yeah. That's a good question. Wisdom. I'm thinking about a time right now. There's a project working with farm workers right now. I'll do a current one actually, and it's an interesting one because there's a lot of language barriers and a lot of assumptions. And right now, what we're doing is really changing the strategy on how do we do engagement in this time of age and with people, because there's a lot of fear. And really, how I lean in is very grassroots and working with organizations that are doing the work already. Instead of trying to rebuild, how do I support? And from that support, help inform. So from that inform, we can engage. And it kind of steps, right? You have to build the relationships. You have to have a lot of meetings. So right now I'm having a lot of meetings. I'm doing it in ways that I haven't done it in the past. It's probably a bad example, Wisdom, because I'm currently in the midst of it. I'll share for you and for the listeners. It's working well. It's changing, but maybe it might be one for a future episode to say, hey, how does this one go? And I'll tell you right now, when you're engaging with vulnerable communities, the best thing you can do is be creative. So right now, what we're doing is getting creative, because that's really the importance. And with that creativity, how do you make people feel like they're being heard and they're being welcomed into the space? So how does that? I know it's not very much of an example, but working with farmers right now and meeting their needs is really important.
Okay. I wish I could snap my fingers and just move us into the future, so you can probably look back and in retrospect and say, okay, yeah, this is what happened when we worked with the farmers. But thanks for sharing that.
I'm happy to give other examples if you want. I think I was going off in my mind. Yeah. It's funny because it was just like, well, I guess this one right now is really off the top of my head. It's been really mind-boggling. I mean, previous example, recently working with a city in Wisconsin and trying to reduce death in their streets. Really interesting project. We call it Vision Zero in the city of Sun Prairie. And what we did essentially was, how do we reach underserved communities? And I did it through a number of farmers market. Going back to the farmers, but it's a great way to engage people because it's early in the morning. People are out and about having conversations, and I was setting up a table and asking them to answer 3 questions for me using, pom-poms, which is really exciting because, I was asking them, do you think we should reduce speed limits? And using pom-poms, you would vote yes, no, maybe. Where do you think we should reduce speed limits, and what would you like to see? And mostly it was to spark conversation. I think you learn a lot from community through conversation. And sometimes you need something to spark that, like I said, and be able to have that creativity come to people's mind or to get them to think about the topic. So for me, it was, let's create a simple voting system. Let's use these pom-poms, these little furry balls, right? And get people to vote on them. And while the adults are engaging with it, and the questions are in Spanish and English. The kids can play with Legos on the side, or get some candy. So I think it's that creativity that I was speaking of that really helps, bring in diverse audience, bring in diversity in your thought, and bring in different conversations to these efforts that are happening within in your town, or in this case, in the city.
Thank you for sharing that. Looking ahead, what's your vision for the next decade of global diversity work? How can we make inclusivity not just a value, but a shared daily habit?
That's awesome question, Wisdom. I think I would love to move from diversity to belonging, and move beyond just the basic metrics and exploring, but also just making people feel like they belong, like regardless of your background, your race, your culture, you are welcome and you can be your authentic self without having to pretend. If you're imagining 10 years from now, I would say that global diversity is going to keep growing. And with that, we need to grow our mindsets. I think it's great to see the we and the us, and how do we move from that to an all of us.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I did prepare a set of lightning round questions. You ready? Okay. What's one word that describes what diversity feels like to you? Okay.
Welcoming.
What's a culture you've learned the most from?
Oh, I've learned a lot from Black and Asian cultures.
What's a book or resource that opened your eyes to inclusion?
There's this good one I've been reading right now. It's called Your Brain on Altruism. It's really cool, by Nicole Carlis, and it really talks about the power of connection and community during these times of crisis. So check it out, to the listeners.
What's your go-to advice for someone struggling to connect across cultures?
That's a great question. I was leaning to, who do I know is a trusted messenger, and how can I learn from?
Okay. What's the first thing you notice when you're entering a new community or organization?
My best practice is I don't ask for anything until I've been seen 3 times. And that's just my rule of thumb, engage 3 times, whether it's at an event, reporting, whatever it is, be there 3 times before you start making the ask.
If every company had one diversity superpower, what should it be?
Multilingual access is always going to be something I'll advocate for. How do we bring in different languages into the workplace, and in a natural way? I think AI can help us there, but it's still working on it.
Finish this sentence. When inclusion wins,
we all win.
When inclusion wins, we all win.
Very cheesy.
When inclusion wins, we all win. Why does it seem like we had this planned?
Almost, right? We didn't. To the audience, we're doing it off the bat.
Where can listeners learn more about the work you do and also connect with you?
Great question, Wisdom. Follow me on LinkedIn. Very active there. Send me a message. I love to learn. I'm curious by nature, and I love that. So I hope that as I move into my 30th year in this earth, I can continue to be curious. Thank you. Soon, not yet, but soon, and continue to be curious. Follow me there, and we'd love to meet you.
Thank you so much. I'll add all the relevant links in the description so listeners can click and go directly to the site. It's been an absolute delight chatting with you, Matthias, again.
Likewise, Wisdom. Thank you again for having me back, and thanks to the listeners for taking the time. Hope you found this, resourceful, or guiding you into a way to be, more inclusive in your day-to-day life.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of the Observeday podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.